laureate will, of course, join us, we think, within a few minutes. Let me just start with the adoption of the agenda. If there's no objections, I propose to adopt the agenda. I don't see any objections. I also have some chair's announcements. Our meeting is, as usual, being web streamed. We have interpretation in all languages except Irish Gaelic. And then there's a TV crew from the European Parliament present in the meeting room to collect footage for a panoramic film shown at the Parliamentarium. So the film will not use specific contents of our meeting, but will just be accompanied by a dedicated narrative, so that everyone knows. Now, to our first and only and very important point, the exchange of views with the 2024 Sakharov Prize laureates, María Corina Machado as leader of the democratic forces in Venezuela, and the president-elect Edmundo González Urrutia, representing all Venezuelans inside and outside the country fighting to restore freedom and democracy. So, waiting for one of our laureates, still I want to address both of them and say, dear honored guests and dear colleagues, it's a great honor for me to co-chair this exchange of views with the 2024 laureates of the Sakharov Prize for Freedom of Thought, together with David McAllister, chair of the Committee of Foreign Affairs, and Munir Saturi, that is still going to join us, who is chair of the subcommittee on human rights. And also let me warmly welcome María Corina Machado as leader of the democratic forces in Venezuela, who is connected remotely. And soon, of course, President-elect Edmundo González Urrutia, who will be with us in the audience. And let me just say, bienvenidos, and thank you for being here. We deeply regret that you, Ms. Machado, cannot be here with us today, but we're glad to be able to have this exchange of views with you remotely, at least. I also take this opportunity to welcome your daughter, María Corina Sosa, who is proudly representing you here in Strasbourg this week. In Venezuela, the ongoing fight for democracy has been met with severe repression. In 2018, Nicolás Maduro was re-elected in an already widely disputed election that lacked legitimacy and failed to meet international standards. In 2023, María Corina Machado, a fierce critic of Mr. Maduro, won Venezuela's opposition primaries with overwhelming support, becoming the symbol of democratic resistance. However, as Maduro's regime disqualified her and later blocked her replacement, Edmundo González Urrutia became the opposition's candidate for the 2024 presidential election. Despite widespread international condemnation, the regime manipulated the election, barring observers and falsely declaring Maduro the winner, while independent reports and opposition tallies showed Mr. González Urrutia had won the vote by a very large majority. Facing persecution, Ms. Machado went into hiding and Mr. González Urrutia fled to Spain after an arrest warrant was issued against him. Their plight highlights the ongoing struggle for democracy in Venezuela. By awarding them the 2024 Sakharov Prize, this Parliament condemns Ms. Machado this Parliament commends Ms. Machado and Mr. González Urrutia for continuing to fight for a fair, free and peaceful transition in power in Venezuela and for fearlessly upholding justice, democracy and the rule of law. This is not the first time that the Sakharov Prize has been awarded to the democratic opposition in Venezuela. In 2017, the prize was given to the political opponents of the Venezuelan government, including the National Assembly and all political prisoners, to reward their continuing bravery in the pursuit of freedom and prosperity in Venezuela. Their journeys remind us that the pursuit of human rights and the rule of law often demand immense personal sacrifice. Let this prize be a renewed beacon of hope for the people of Venezuela and all those around the world who are oppressed. Let me now give the floor to my colleague, David McAllister, Chair of the Committee on Foreign Affairs, for his introductory remarks.
Thank you, dear Isabella. On behalf of the Foreign Affairs Committee, a warm welcome to all colleagues present, and especially to the laureates of the Sakharov Prize. I just would like to briefly remind us all that now already since 1988, the European Parliament has awarded the Sakharov Prize for Freedom of Thought to individuals, organizations that have made significant contributions to the advancement of human rights. Throughout the years, this prestigious prize has come to represent our collective commitment to upholding and promoting human rights, as well as our unwavering support for those who fight for freedom and justice worldwide every single day. The efforts of Venezuela's democratic opposition have already been recognized by the Sakharov Prize in 2017. 7 years later, we unfortunately continue to witness a policy of repression implemented by the Maduro regime, with systematic restrictions on public information, freedom of opinion and expression, and the right to peaceful assembly, particularly for those opposing this regime. Latest, the news of the situation faced by Venezuelan citizens who have been granted asylum at the official residence of the Argentine embassy in Caracas are deeply concerning. I echo the Argentinian foreign minister who, at the meeting of the Organization of American States, said, quote, "Defending human rights does not recognize borders or nationalities. We cannot allow indifference to become an accomplice to arbitrariness." Mr. Maduro's regime, and we have pointed this out as European Parliament several times, has imprisoned an unprecedented number of dissidents, not only surpassing other countries in the region such as Cuba and Nicaragua, but also ranking Venezuela as the country with the largest number of political prisoners in the Western Hemisphere. Geopolitically, Venezuela has become a, quote, reliable stronghold, unquote, for Russia and the Latin American continent, with Mr. Putin emphasizing Venezuela as a strategic ally. Let me recall that while Maduro's alleged victory has been recognized by Russia, Iran, Nicaragua or North Korea, among others the European Union and many other democratic countries and regional and international organizations have not done so. The people of Venezuela continue to face an ongoing socio-economic, political and humanitarian crisis marked by hyperinflation, starvation, lack of access to medicines, high levels of corruption, crime and impunity, and violations of individual and fundamental rights. Since 2014, more than incredibly 7.7 million Venezuelans have fled the country. This is 20% of the population and one of the largest displacements in the world. So the award of the 2024 Sakharov Prize to Edmundo González Urrutia and María Corina Machado recognizes their efforts to restore freedom and democracy in the country. The perseverance of all Venezuelans inside and outside the country is an inspiration to us all. The European Parliament stands in solidarity with you, dear laureates, and the Venezuelan people in your fight for a democratic future of your great country. I now hand back over to Isabel Lövin to lead us through today's exchange of views.
Thank you very much, David. And I'd like to acknowledge the laureate, Edmundo González Urrutia, that just came into the room. A warm welcome to you. And I think we also want to give an applaud, warm applaud to Ms. María Corina Machado, who is already with us remotely. So, dear laureate, 2024 Sakharov Prize winner, both of you will have 10 minutes for introductory remarks and statements. Should I give the floor? Okay, so let me first give the floor to Ms. María Corina Machado, who has been online for our introduction. For 10 minutes, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I am very honored. I am very emotional at this moment to receive this recognition that the European Parliament is giving to the Venezuelan people. For Edmundo González and myself, it is a great honor, and on behalf of them, we are present here today. Our special gratitude to all the members of the Committees on Foreign Affairs, the Committee on Development, and the Subcommittee on Human Rights, especially the MEPs, David McAllister, Mounty Satori, and Barry Andrew. We also want to convey our admiration and respect to the other finalists of this year, Yuvad Idabagoglu and Salah Bayramova of Azerbaijan, Rahim Al-Hahaida from Palestine, and Pascal Shen from Israel. Today, I am in Venezuela. As you're aware, I cannot be with you because I've been banned from leaving my country for over 11 years, and since July 30, I have to be in hiding, as most of the members of our coalition that were involved in that historic event of the July 28th presidential elections. The regime has persecuted fiercely every single Venezuelans that were involved in this epic journey, and today they are either in exile, under asylum, in hiding, or in prison. From Venezuela, I want to send 3 messages this afternoon to you. First of all, is a message of gratitude. The Sakharov Prize represents an acknowledgement to this epic and unprecedented struggle that for over 25 years the Venezuelan people have been growing and building, but especially because it arrives at a critical and decisive moment. And that's why it has an even stronger effect, because it conveys a message of trust from the European people that you represent to the Venezuelan people. We are at a unique moment in which we've never had gathered so much strength. We have demolished the barriers that had divided our society for over 25 years. And now we have a society that is cohesive, united, and determined to fight. At this moment, this acknowledgement at this moment sends a clear message to every single Venezuelan that today is in prison, to mothers that have their children being tortured. It tells all of us that we are not alone. It reaches the heart and souls of every single Venezuelan. Secondly, I want to send you a message of trust and reaffirmation. We have come a very long way. The regime has shown its most violent face, but it has not weakened us, but on the contrary, given us more reasons to fight and move ahead. And this is a moment in which we are determined to make the truth be respected. The mandate of a united Venezuela that decided a transition to democracy, we're going to fight and defend it until the end. And finally, I want to send a message of urgency. We are only 24 days away from January 10th, the day in which the president-elect Edmundo González Urrutia should be sworn in as our constitutional president. We Venezuelans are determined to make our mandate be respected, and we need you more than ever. It is very important that the world, the democratic world, understands what a transition to democracy means, not only for millions of Venezuelans, but for the whole region and for Western democracies. A transition to democracy would mean that we will see how the migration flows will stop immediately, and we'll see millions that have fled our country coming back. We will have our kids back home. But also, we will dismantle a criminal state that has established, as MEP previously said, relations with the tyrannies from other continents, such as Russia and Iran, and has opened the doors of Latin America to these tyrannies and also to extreme terrorist organizations. We will also fight from Venezuela to promote democracy and see our brothers and sisters of Cuba and Nicaragua also embrace a path of democracy for them. Believe us, a transition to democracy in Venezuela will also open the doors for freedom for Cubans and Nicaraguans, and especially to them and the political prisoners in those countries. We send all our strength and reaffirm that their fight is ours as well. We're certainly facing the darkest hours. These are the most dangerous hours. Just this morning, we learned that another political prisoner that was taken into custody by the Maduro regime the day after the election was found dead this morning. 3 political prisoners in the last 3 weeks have been killed under custody. We have children that are tortured, children that have been accused of terrorism as we speak in these jails. We have thousands, over 2,000 Venezuelans crossing the border every day, leaving behind their dreams, their families, their future. So this is the moment to act. I want to convey this message. We have the greatest opportunity in front of us. We are facing the darkest hours and also the brightest hours in which we see the strength of a society determined to live in freedom. This movement was built around love. Love for our children, love for our country, and love for freedom. And we will prevail. Thank you very much on behalf of the Venezuelan people.
Thank you so much, Ms. Machado. And before I give the floor to our next laureate, I just for time management reasons would like to ask colleagues to indicate if you want to take the floor and ask questions or have statements after the 2 laureates have given their statements. So you can just show your hands now. Yes. Okay, thank you. And then now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Edmundo, President-elect Gonzalez Urrutia. The floor is yours for 10 minutes, please.
Dear members of the European Parliament, Your Excellencies, it's a great honor for me to stand before you today to accept this Sakharov Prize on behalf of the Venezuelan people. This prestigious award, which we hold in deep gratitude, is a powerful recognition of our long-standing struggle to reclaim our freedom and democracy. For over a quarter of a century, our nation has endured the consequences of an increasingly autocratic regime whose intent was always to cling into power indefinitely. From its earliest stage, the regime imposed a radical shift in our foreign policy, leaving behind our proud tradition of championing democracy among our neighboring countries. The deterioration of relations with Western democracies under this regime, replaced by closer ties with autocratic powers like Moscow, Tehran, Damascus, and Beijing has been detrimental to the Venezuelan people. This shift has facilitated a concentration of autocratic power and fostered an extractive economic system stripped of rule of law. Although the public spending initially created the illusion of prosperity, the very foundation of our economy were eroding. Our industrial sector rapidly declined, our currency weakened, and international reserves were irresponsibly mismanaged. As a result, Venezuela's GDP plummeted by nearly 80% between 2013 and 2023. According to recent nationwide survey carried out by Venezuelan universities, 60% of the population live in extreme poverty. A sustained and punishing hyperinflation has extinguished any hope for development under this destructive regime, severely impacting commercial transactions and drastically reducing food consumption. Following this historic electoral defeat, the regime escalated the number of political prisoners from 300 to more than 2,000, including over 150 children and teenagers and 250 women, alongside many elderly individuals and persons with disabilities. Families of victims and human rights organizations have documented systematic, inhuman, cruel, and degrading treatment, with various forms of torture being inflicted by state security forces, including sexual violence against children and women. Many prisoners have faced despair, contemplating or attempting to commit suicide. At least 2 political prisoners died under government custody. This has prompted the International Criminal Court to open an investigation into human rights violations and crimes against humanity perpetrated by this regime, supported by approximately 9,000 victim testimonies. This is why the political change sought by the overwhelming majority of Venezuelans on July 28 is beyond a right. It's a vital necessity. It's also the reason why support from global democracy for Venezuela sovereign decision is crucial. The award I am here to receive alongside María Corina Machado, represented by her daughter Ana Corina, is a clear sign that we are united in our fight for freedom, democracy, justice, and human rights in Venezuela, Europe, and wherever needed always. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much for your statements. As this joint meeting is also taking place in association with the delegation to the Euro-Latin American Parliamentary Assembly and the delegation for relations with Mercosur, I would like to give the floor to the respective chairs, Mr. Gabriel Mato and the Vice Chair, Ms. Ohane, I'll try to get this right, Aguirre Goita Martinez. Okay, for 2 minutes each. So first the floor to Gabriel Mato, the DILA chair, for 2 minutes.
Gracias, Presidenta.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be speaking Spanish, the language of all Venezuelan people. Dear María Corina, dear Edmundo González, and to the entire opposition force. Although we are happy to be here today with you to award the prize to you, it does come from a great sense of sadness and indignation because we have seen that the tyrannical regime have not allowed María Corina to be with us. I'd like to commend you for the bravery that you have shown to continually stand against the regime and to defend democracy in Venezuela. I'd like to say this very clearly. You are an example for all of us. I have lived for a long time in Venezuela, but what I want to talk about more is the fight that you're waging for your people and for your democracy. You have already said this, but I'd like to highlight your milestones. What you have done is no easy feat. You're trying to encourage millions of Venezuelans and to give them hope where there did not seem to be any hope. Opposing a brutal regime not via force and weapons, but rather the weapons of will and democracy. Because Maria Corina and the rest of the opposition, many of them have been persecuted and have been imprisoned for their fight. Of course, Maria Corina could not be with us, and I think that this is a very valuable lesson for all of us. We must defend democracy across the globe. This prize is more than just simple recognition of effort and bravery that the opposition forces have shown in order to free Venezuela, but rather it should also be a reminder that our task in this Parliament does not just end with the award of this prize, because those who are suffering, who are holed up in embassies in Caracas, show that this is ongoing. Our international community, including us, can never allow for a non-peaceful transition to power in Venezuela. This is a demand that we have. We need to ensure that Edmundo González can be sworn in on the 10th of January. And it's not just because I'm saying this, but because the Venezuelan people democratically expressed their vote. We either fight for democracy or we're on the side of tyranny. And I'd like to say this very clearly. President Edmundo González, I trust that we will be able to witness your swearing in on the 10th of January. Maria Corina, a big hug from me, and we will stand with you for as long as it takes.
Thank you, Gabriel Mato. And now I give the floor to Ms. Martinez for 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. I also will speak in Spanish too.
First and foremost, I'd like to say thank you very much for being here. We know that this is an important job that you're doing and that you have very busy schedules. As Renew did a few days ago, we held a remote conference with Maria, and we were very lucky to hear from her there, and we're glad to see her daughter here with us today. So first and foremost, I'd like to commend you on the stellar work that you have been doing. You have been defending democratic values and the will of the Venezuelan people. Personally, I come from the Basque Country. We have historic ties with the Venezuelan people, and as such, I'd like to thank you here in this public sphere. I'd like to thank Renew for the support that they've given to the Venezuelan people and to continue to stand up for human rights and democracy and the will of the Venezuelan people. I'll be very brief. Just a couple of questions. What can we expect from the future? We had Transparency International talking to us about facts and figures, and what can we do going forward? What can we do to support you? And then we have this date of the 10th of January. It's just around the corner, the inauguration in Venezuela. 20th of January, Donald Trump will be sworn in the US. So as you see, we have these dates just around the corner. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now I open the floor to members who requested the floor. I will start with Mr. Bugallo from the EPP. The floor is yours. Maximum 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chairwoman. Thank you very much to all the chairs presiding this session. Agradezco también al presidente Edmundo González Urrutia por estar aquí conosco.
I'd like to thank you for being here with us today, President-elect Edmundo González.
It was the first thing that I did as an MEP. It was to help write and support the resolution that recognized the result of Edmundo González Urrutia at the elections. When we did it as a European Parliament, we were very much alone. I wouldn't say as alone as you feel far away from home as you are today, Presidente, or as alone as María Corina feels, because every time we speak with her, we see different walls behind her because she has to move every day and every week for the sake of her life. But we were kind of alone when we looked around. But after that resolution, the High Representative, the previous High Representative, Mr. Borrell, recognized the result. And after Mr. Borrell recognized the result, the G7 recognized the result. So we were alone in the summer when we said who won this election, but we are not as alone as we were back then today. And tomorrow, when the European Parliament gives the Sakharov Prize, we know that we are not alone anymore, because we know that this House, together with all its political families, made an effort to together give this award in honor of the fight of the Venezuelan people for democracy and freedom. It is something that touches me, that 9 million people had to run away from a country because they did not believe they could get democracy and freedom in their country anymore. My country has 10 million people of citizens. Their country lost 9 million people for lack of democracy. It's in their honor that we'll give them this award tomorrow. Thank you, Edmundo, and thank you, María Corina, for your fight, and thank you to all the Venezuelans. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to Mr. Sánchez Amor.
Gracias, Presidente.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Maria and Edmundo. Thank you both for being here, despite the fact that Maria, you're connecting remotely. And I think, Edmundo, you will have a much busier week than Maria, because you will, of course, have a great deal of meetings to attend. And I think that will be valuable for you for the future moving forward in your political career. Congratulations on the prize. You deserve this for your work that you've been doing for many years. And we're still hearing new developments, as Maria Corina told us, about other political prisoners who are being repressed and imprisoned in Venezuela. And I think this prize reflects the bravery that you have demonstrated, and of course, as well, the political wisdom with which you have operated, the way that you have worked in order to ensure that everyone recognises the victory of the opposition in the election. We talk about enemies of the regime, but you have friends throughout the world, and behind many of these institutions, you have supporters throughout the EU and the world. And now, what you need to do moving forward is to continue set an example both for your country and for the world, an example of how Democrats in Venezuela and indeed throughout the world can stand firm against repression, exhaustion, and the fight for democracy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, colleague Sánchez Amor. Now I give the floor to Mr. Fidanza.
Querida María Corina.
María Corina, President Edmundo González, welcome. And now I'll switch to Italian, if you like.
Grazie, Presidente.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to all who have supported these laureates of the Sakharov Prize. Thank you to all the colleagues who showed that support, and thank you for being here this evening. Tomorrow will be a symbolic moment. I was very pleased to see María Corina, obviously still in hiding, but it was good to see her smile. It was a comforting smile, because it's good to see that she is still safe, but it also helps to comfort all other Venezuelans fighting for liberty and against tyranny. And it comforts us in our as we struggle by your side. And then obviously we have the President-elect Edmundo González here with us in person. These are very difficult days. As you all know, there's this imminent deadline, which means that we must intensify our work to ensure the result of having this constitutional inauguration for the legitimate president of all Venezuelans. Naturally, this should unite our work together because we want to free these political prisoners. We also want to be able to return or have all these Venezuelan immigrants so that they can go back home. Now, in Italy, we have historical ties with Venezuela. Many Venezuelans have Italian roots, and several of them are dual citizens. Some are citizens of Italy, and some of those citizens are political prisoners of the political opposition. Unfortunately, your colleagues are in Maduro's prisons. So beyond solidarity and friendship that we are obviously wishing you, I think it would also be interesting to hear in your words what you think we can do over the next few days to help support your struggle for freedom and liberty. As Mato said, the regime won't care that you're being awarded a prize. We need to have more concrete action so that we know what we can do so that your day of freedom can arrive. It's what Venezuelan people deserve. Thank you.
Grazie, collega Fidanza. And now I give the floor to collega Milan Mon.
Yes. Gracias, Presidenta. Yo también quería...
Thank you, Chair. I too would like to echo the congratulatory words and the words of recognition from my colleagues, particularly from Mato and González. This prize for you, Maria and Edmundo, shows the fight that you have been waging for democracy and freedom and rights in Venezuela. And this is a great example for all Venezuelans in and outside of the country who are continuing to fight for democracy. And we show here the mistake that is made when you undermine human rights. I'd like to reaffirm the firm commitment of this chamber to Venezuela. It was, I believe, in 2017 when we awarded the prize to the Venezuelan opposition, and recently in September we recognized Edmundo González as the legitimate and democratically elected president and María Corina as a leader of the democratic forces in Venezuela. And this is a crucial moment. 10th of January, that's when the new president will be sworn in, and I do hope that Edmundo will be the new president and he'll be able to take up office. I hope that we'll be able to continue our close communication, particularly with the High Representative, and you can count on the full support of this chamber, which is the House of Democracy in Europe. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And now I give the floor to Ville Sovnal from the Greens.
Thank you very much. A personal story. When I was 23, it's some years ago, I traveled on a ship from Genova in Italy to Caracas in Venezuela. And you spend a year traveling on the continent. At that time, it was all military dictatorship, with one exception, Argentina, but there was a coup there when I was there. Today, except for one country, Venezuela, it's democracies. Although with all the trouble it gives, that gives hope. That gives a lot of hope. Last weekend we saw that a country which had for decades, 5 decades, been governed by a dictatorship fell together in 4 days. 4 days, that gives a lot of hope. So in fact, I have only one comment and one question. I think what you do, these changes are not coming without some people doing something. That's what you are doing, and thank you very much for that. It's people who are offering their wealth, their future, their lives. What can we do more to help you from outside, supporting you, not taking over the things that have to be done, but what is the help you see we could do? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ville. Yes. And now I give the floor to Mr. Blaha.
Ďakujem pekne, vážení kolegovia. Dúfam, že tu môže zaznieť aj opozičný hlas. A ja by som sa rád dištancoval od toho, čo...
Thank you. I would like to distance myself from what's going on here today as a voice of the opposition. With all due respect to the politicians in Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro is the only elected president of the country, and I'd like to congratulate him. We've got genocide going on in Palestine, women and children being slaughtered, and we're talking about the political situation in Venezuela. Can't we just accept who the winner is? In Romania, we weren't happy with the elected president, and then we just had another election. This is not a democratic approach. We want to help several million people from Venezuela. Fair enough. Then we should just do away with the Western sanctions and not meddle in Venezuelan affairs. And we could have people such as Dubček or Nelson Mandela turning around in their grave because the Sakharov Prize is now being awarded to these individuals.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sherba.
I will speak in Polish. Szanowny panie prezydencie elekcie, chciałbym przekazać serdeczne pozdrowienia.
Dear President-elect, I want to greet you on behalf of Poland, on behalf of the country of Lech Wałęsa, a Peace Nobel Prize laureate. You are treated like such a hero also in our country. I want to ask you about how the Maduro regime wants to strengthen its cooperation with other authoritarian regimes like Russia or Iran. I would like to tell you that our objective is to break that network of mutual support between those regimes, and we hope that we can cooperate on this. We hope that a free democratic Venezuela will cooperate with her Atlantic and European allies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleagues, for your remarks. I now want to give the floor to the laureates for their replies. First, Ms. María Corina Machado for 5 minutes. The floor is yours.
Bueno, voy a hablar en...
I will speak in Spanish, seeing as several MEPs addressed me in Spanish, and I would like for them to understand me completely. I want you to understand that what is happening in Venezuela goes so much further than it simply being a victory in an election in very unfair circumstances, which no European democratic country would accept. Venezuelans were hindered from voting. There was persecution. There wasn't access to media. But the people of Venezuela rose up united. This is so much more than a political movement. This has been a social movement which has very deep-rooted cultural aspects. Today, 90% of the Venezuelan population is united. We don't have religious or racial or regional differences or social differences or even ideological. We all want the same thing. We want to live in dignity. We want to be able to look at one another in the eye and live together in a pluralist democracy. We want to be equal before the law. We want to be able to carry out a dignified work, and we want our children to return home. This is a kind of yearning that has brought Venezuela together, and this is why we have decided to fight together. We know that global totalitarian regimes that are enemies of democracy, like Russia and Iran, they want to use Venezuela to destabilize the continent. And this is why Venezuela has become a global cause. What is happening today in Venezuela will define the future of democracy and liberty in Latin America. This is why we need you to raise your voices. And we also want to thank you, as Tom, our friend, Sebastian, and each one of you who spoke. The European Parliament was one of our first allies. And so we know that we are not alone. We have a huge coalition. So what we are asking you to do is to raise your voice. Let the world know that we are going to win. We are going to keep on surging forward. There are high costs when it comes to persecution. Each country in the world must know that now is the moment to support this huge Venezuelan movement, the democratic forces, so that we can achieve liberty. You must have confidence that we are not going to take a step back. We have never seen so much contradiction and division within the system, within Maduro's system. Venezuela has never been as united as it is now. We want to progress forward despite all the risks. We are not going to surrender. Venezuela will be free. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I now give the floor to President-elect Edmundo González Urrutia. For 5 minutes, the floor is yours to respond to the comments and questions.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I'd like to begin by thanking our friends Gabriel, Sebastian, who made some opening remarks about the situation in Venezuela. Now, to Gabriel. He has worked in many different electoral processes that occurred in Venezuela. At the cost of being unable to return to Venezuela. He was exiled, like many other MEPs. So it has been an honor to share those moments with you. Now, it is a shame that our friend has left, because I wanted to share not necessarily my personal comments, but listen, as we heard a few days ago, the testimonies of various different Venezuelans who have been victims of abuses by the regime, human rights violations. Hearing them, hearing out loud the testimony of a mother whose child had a bomb explode in his face. This was something that was unforgettable. Just as the torture that many of them underwent, that was all unforgettable. There is also a Venezuelan woman who has been a victim of the cruel treatment that the regime has carried out against the opposition. She was a victim of harassment by the authorities. Her mother, I think, it has been 9 months now that she has been incarcerated in one of the most awful prisons in Venezuela. Her home was ransacked by the police forces of the government. Now, we heard all of these testimonies a few days ago during a session on the anniversary of World Human Rights Day. We heard many stories, and this was a very moving experience. So I wanted to thank all of you for the support that you are giving to Venezuela's cause, and I'd like to thank you for the prize that you have given to María Corina and myself. We accept it on behalf of all the people of Venezuela and not for ourselves. It is for the people. Thank you.
So thank you again very much, and congratulations again to the 2024 Sakharov Prize laureates and thank you for coming to this joint meeting with the AFET committee, DEVE committee, and DRA committee. I would like to pass the floor now to Munir Satouri, who is chair of the subcommittee on human rights, for his concluding remarks. The floor is yours.
Merci, Isabella.
Thank you, Isabella. It's not an easy job to conclude this kind of event. Dear guests, dear colleagues, thank you for this moving debate, which is a solemn reminder that freedom and democracy cannot be taken for granted. They need to be safeguarded, enhanced, and continuously strived for to be preserved. The Sakharov Prize is a testament to the European Parliament's staunch commitment to stand up for human rights across the globe. The idea is to shine a light on the strength of the commitment of those who fight for freedom and democracy. Their courage and sacrifice represent a huge power, that of changing the world. Our Parliament is at their side and shares their fight for humanity. The unwavering commitment of Edmundo González Urrutia and María Corina Machado to restore freedom and democracy in Venezuela is such a cause. I'd also like to use this opportunity to salute the people of Venezuela, whose bravery to stand up and exercise their democratic right has inspired all of us. To them, I say that your acts of courage and resistance against the oppressive regime are often unsung, but this House stands in solidarity with you for a prosperous future of Venezuela. We have demonstrated this commitment through our resolutions and condemned Maduro and his regime. The events during the presidential elections in Venezuela should give us all pause for thought. The Sakharov Prize is also a call for vigilance in order to safeguard the most paramount of human accomplishment, democracy. Recent events have demonstrated that there are malign actors who consider our democracies to be fragile and us to be weak. It's our collective responsibility to prove them wrong and show them that our freedom, or our commitment rather, to democratic principles is unwavering. The Sakharov Prize allows us to commend individuals whose fight resonates with our values and principles, which are the cornerstone of our European project. Justice, democracy, and the rule of law are the very essence of what defines us, of what makes us Europeans. We can only give one prize, but the whole Sakharov community and the finalists deserve our profound gratitude for their fight to preserve these values. I'd like to conclude by congratulating all those who fight in their day-to-day lives to protect human rights and dignity.
Thank you, Munir. Thank you, David, also for co-chairing this, and thank you, everyone, for attending this joint meeting. Thank you to the laureates, of course. And now we're just finishing this meeting, asking you all if there's any other business. I don't find that. So if there's no other business to discuss, then the meeting is closed, and I look forward to meeting you again tomorrow when the Sakharov Prize 2024 will be awarded in the plenary. Thank you very much.